session meeting to order on January 20, 2026, and I will turn this over to Enrico.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the study session for tonight, there is no formal action that is expected of you all to take. Naturally, as part of these discussions, there would be general direction that you all would provide, but there is nothing formally that you would vote on. So largely, these meetings are intended to be informal and have a more free-flowing conversation. Some of that will be sacrificed by being in this venue here instead of being in the back. Just in the event that, say, Cecil is talking and people that are listening wouldn't be able to hear, the expectation would be that the department head would come up and then speak. That way it's heard clearly for those not only in this room here, but also those that are tuning in. To kick off the general thought behind this, with the upcoming sales tax election, we've spent a lot of time talking about the budget and where we're at, and then the graph that we've all seen now where you have the revenues and expenditures going in opposite directions. None of that is make-believe by any stretch of the imagination. And we've made a lot of changes throughout really the past 2 years to try to tighten the two together. And kind of the last hope we have is for the sales tax to pass. For the sales tax, just to remind those that are listening, is proposed to be used for streets, stormwater, and then parks and facilities. And it's not only CIP projects, but also operations and maintenance, or O&M as it's commonly abbreviated to. And so it'd be a general use sales tax that would really provide a substantial amount of relief for the general fund. So the vast majority of departments, with the exception of two, rely on the general fund for the vast majority of their revenue. Excuse me. So I'll get into this a little bit, but before I do, I do want to end with these are discussion points, not necessarily that these would be cuts, but rather in order to make weight for if the sales tax does not pass. So that's the large what-if scenario for us tonight, because naturally any of the direction that you all give us we'll have to take back as staff and kind of run projections on whatever scenarios may be. So this for tonight is if the sales tax does not pass. So with that, actually, it looks like the fire department is up first. Chief?
This ought to be good here because I just got out of the dentist chair. So if I start drooling or something, you know why. What I did here is I sent City Manager Enrico Villegas a letter this morning here. And I'll just go through the points here. I said, over the past 9 years of my tenure as fire chief here in Hutchinson, I've complied with successful directives to reduce the fire department's operational budget. Those reductions have been implemented, and our finance department can verify this history. Throughout this period, core obligations remain inescapable. Training to maintain licensure, readiness, and safety, preventive maintenance and repairs for apparatus and equipment, facility upkeep for fire stations, fuel, electricity, and natural gas necessary for operations. While we have continued to absorb cuts through efficiencies and deferrals, cost growth over the past 5 years has occurred primarily in areas outside of our operational discretion: negotiated wage increase, medical insurance, workers' compensation, and retirement benefits. We've now reached a point where additional reductions cannot be achieved without affecting service delivery. After exhaustive review, the only actionable recommendation I can offer within the target reduction is to close one of the fire stations and reduce personnel. This would have a steep impact and the following foreseeable impacts. There would be longer response times within the affected districts and increased reliance on cross districts to come in. It reduced surge capacity for simulated incidents, structure fires, and severe weather incidents. Increased wear on remaining apparatus and facilities due to higher utilization. Elevate risk of firefighter safety from a leaner staffing of initial assignments. And it will affect our ISO rating going forward. And I'm available for any comments or discussion that you may have.
What fire station would be closed?
That would be your call, but my recommendation would be 7.
Can you tell me? I'm not.
30th, East 30th, up by Spyglass up that way, by the school. It's the least call volume, and that's the only reason why.
Is there any special equipment that's housed there currently? Fire, like
Engines and brush
wildfires?
trucks.
Bush trucks.
Would you lay off all those gentlemen that's in there?
You would have to save the cost. The cost is in personnel now. We've cut literally everything out of our budget. And like I said, every council since I've been here, 9 years, has asked me to reduce our operational budget. And it gets to a point where when wages, you give somebody a 3-4% rate wage increase, that's got to come from somewhere. Like I said, the workers' comp, the medical insurance, the retirement stuff, that's all stuff that's been out of our control that I don't have no control over that. And so we still need to, this year we just did 6,080 calls, okay? And we're a busy fire department here, and it will have a negative impact on services here. And I think the biggest thing you need to be aware of too is last year, one of the biggest things I have in the fire department is property value saved. And we saved $220 million last year of property in the city. Now you had a 97% save rate. What does that mean? 97% of the time that we respond on a structure fire or whatever, we might have a kitchen fire, but that owner maybe just has to replace the cabinets and some sheetrock. Contractor comes in, but that building's still on the payroll. The year before I think we were up to $400 million worth of property value saved. And so them are real numbers, and you can't argue them numbers at all because that's right off the tax roll for the assessment from the county. And we track that very efficiently and we're dedicated to them numbers. And it comes down, you may say, why do you have a 97% save rate in town here? It comes down to our response times. It's simple as that. I don't know if you're aware of Saturday afternoon. We almost had the same thing that happened a few weeks back up on North Plum. We had every unit. We called in mutual aid again. We had another brush fire just south of the one that ended up there. That was coming right into the city. And so we spent hours out there again on Saturday afternoon and Saturday night. And the only reason we can do that again is when we can respond within a minute to 3 minutes. That's what saves lives and property. And so that's a decision you guys are going to have to make going forward is, the value of public safety.
Well, Chief, talk to me about putting off the replacement vehicle, replacing your trucks. Can you spread that out? What's that look like?
We have nothing on the radar right now. We have an engine coming in 27, but that was purchased 3.5 years ago. It's 4 years to get a fire truck now. And that's really the only big ticket item we have. We have new air packs in 27 or 28, but I'm working with Jeremy on looking at writing a grant for that process. And so honestly, we have their stations, we're set. We're set for the long haul. There's nothing in our CIP that's above and beyond on anything big. There's no big ticket items.
So if you have to pull number 7, I have to shut it down, what does that do for response times what does that change your response times to? With not having that station, and then what station would service that?
Station 4 at Halstead and 11th would be part of it, and Station 6 on North Plum would come in. That station's a key station, especially for the whole Spyglass subdivision out there. We probably got some of our most expensive property values out that way. And it's critical to get them out the door on our brush fires. They're like the first ones at east of town or northeast of town that get on scene and start putting some fire out. I think, we can look at, some other options if we get down that road, but it's going to be it's gonna be personnel. There's nothing else to give out of our budget, to operate anymore.
So you talk personnel, how many personnel did you have to?
Well, that would be 9 personnel, and I've been, when I retire here in March, I've been doing this job for 41 years. And this stuff is nothing new to me. I've seen it through my entire career. And it's never easy, but it's what level of service do you want for Hutchinson is a question I ask you guys, City Council. What level of service do you want? And that's a decision you guys are going to have to make.
Yeah, and I think I think that station is very crucial out there because I don't know how many times you hear of that, those brush fires kicking up and they're the first ones out there, and if they're not, then who knows what happens. So, where's the closest brush truck beyond Station 7?
Every station has a brush
Every
truck.
station has one.
But again, the bigger part of the picture too, you're gonna have to look at too, is when you do stuff like that, that's gonna have an impact on our insurance ratings that we brag about in the city here too. If you wanna maintain an ISO 1 class city, we were a 3. We'll probably drop down to a 3 again or something like that. So, them are all decisions that impact this type of stuff.
And I don't mean this as a dig against our mutual aid partners, but we are typically the ones to respond to requests for mutual aid.
Not
Because-
necessarily. We track that on a monthly basis. We actually, we give a little bit more than what we receive.
Okay. But from a experience, equipment, and training standpoint, would you say that we're above and beyond most of our mutual aid partners?
Well, being a paid department, the volunteer departments across the country are struggling. Daytime staffing, there was a call today that that paged them out twice to get somebody to respond. And so, but they're doing good things in the county too. They're just merged they took all the fire districts and merged them into one. And so there's a lot of good things happening out there. They're standardizing their equipment, standardizing stations. They just built 2 new stations out there, and they got a good plan in place. So it's a good partner that we have. And we, like I said, with the wildland threat that we have here around Hutchinson, we had 131 firefighters on that North Plum incident here a few weeks back, 131 people, and most of that was mutual aid.
But to say that we would potentially, we would be looking at closing Station 7 and possibly increasing our calls for mutual aid. You would be trading a full-time paid force, 9 employees, with mutual aid who are part-time, who are possibly not as trained, who are bringing possibly less maintained equipment, et cetera.
You think
Is that
about
safe to
this
say?
as like on a volunteer department, they meet once a week, some meet every other week for a few hours. To be an ISO 1 level organization, every one of my firefighters has to have 20 hours of training per month. That is per month. Think about that. That's how strict and, like I said, we can, on our training grounds out there, that's why it's so important in Kansas here. When I came here, it just blew me away. There is no requirements in the state of Kansas to become a firefighter. Every other state has minimum from volunteer firefighters all the way to career firefighters up, but Kansas has nothing. So what does that mean? That means my training division has to be spot on. It's probably the most important division in my organization is our training. And so being able to train our firefighters the way we want. We can mess up every day down at the training grounds, but when the call comes in, we better have our game face on and do the job.
How many AMTs are at 7?
It varies. We have, I think, 12 or 15 right now, and so
Total.
they're scattered all throughout the city. I think the biggest thing too is where I've seen this is that it becomes a political hotbed when you start talking closing fire stations down and stuff like that. Just be prepared for that. I've seen that in my career, and I just wish I had the magic number to give you or something like you're talking about, Councilman Fast. But there's just nothing left to give out of our budget.
Well, and I know that every year that we've had budget talks in the room back there, you've volunteered to take things off of your budget or to transition things or to split projects. I mean, even you had crumbling concrete out at the training grounds, and I know you delayed that by another year or two, just to save the city $75,000 on concrete that year. And as you said, that training ground is incredibly useful. It's priceless, and I think that you've always gone above and beyond, and I appreciate that about you. So when you stand here and say that there is no fat to trim from your budget, I absolutely believe you. And this is going to turn into a political hotbed, and I hope that you and HPD and HFD and all of our staff see that council does support this, and we support our staff. And that's why we moved to put this on the ballot. The question is, will the residents see the same value? And if I were a skeptic listening to this right now, I would say, yeah, BS, you're saying that one's going to close because you cherry picked it, and you're going to, play the political game, and you've now picked the neighborhood that everybody has agency and votes and highest home values, and now they're all going to be in an uproar and moving to support this because they don't want their house to be at risk or their school or what have you. But I think when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it's not a pretty picture, and you have done your part for sure.
And I'm not advocating to close one of the stations. That's the hardest thing a fire chief has to do, is to come up here and tell you that that's what's left is personnel and a station. It breaks my heart when you got to talk that way, but that's reality. And if you know me, I don't sugarcoat nothing. We'll look each other in the eye. We may agree to disagree, but we'll have that conversation. And I say 41 years of doing this job. I've seen a lot of different things in my career, and so I respect that you respect my opinions, and I thank you for everything that you guys do.
Well, and to tag on to what Stacy said, she's talking about something that might have happened 2 or 3 years ago with the concrete and pushing that down the road. I mean, there's something you're doing the last 6 weeks behind Avenue E. You're not putting concrete in, you're putting gravel in. I'm sure that's to save money and to work within your budget. It doesn't go unnoticed by me. We had lunch the other day. I didn't mention it, but I know what's going on. So.
I always enjoy having lunch with you, Greg.
I do too.
Anybody else? Thank
I
you.
just think it would, just pitch from being on street on the police department, be a long way from 11th and Halsted out to that station.
Mm-hmm.
You
To that
know?
region, yeah.
Or if you had to come down 30th or Halsted, it's still a long way.
And you look at this last year in Hutch here, we had 5 fatalities in 2025, and in town. Well, one was out on 56 north of town here, but the other 4 were in town here. And that's with a good response time and doing everything that we can do, and so saving lives and property is what we do on a daily basis, and that's there's a lot of risk in this town, and our risk assessments show that. We address them, and we'll continue to do that.
Because, I mean, just saying here, you're talking about 7 being a slower station, but you think about it, I'd rather you guys stay in the station all day and not have to go anywhere.
Well, nobody ever does not go anywhere, but
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is
Yeah.
I mean, but when I need you, I want you,
right. We've done so much over the past 9 years as an organization to become a data-driven organization that every single decision is based on that data. And it takes the opinions and the emotions out of the equation when you can have data-driven decision-making. And that definitely has helped us. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
And I would like to add that, and really this is kind of to dispel a myth. And this was last year when we still had budget issues. I've had people in the community say, oh, if you want to balance the budget, just cut police and cut fire. as in like their budgets. And, you know, their budget is a substantial sum of the pie. Well, yeah, it makes sense because they're also some of the largest departments. They also have some of the most expensive equipment. And having combed through Chief's budget and Angela as well, I mean, he is right. There's really not a whole lot left to give. And I do support everything Chief said because it is true. Looks like Public Works is next, so Cecil.
Evening, Council. So, just a couple things we were looking at as possibilities within Public Works. First, we kind of looked at like our MRF equipment funds, and there is some equipment that we feel that we could punt for a year or two. It's not any equipment we can just eliminate. All the equipment we have is really just what is needed for day-to-day operation to maintain. So with the equipment looking at, we can definitely kick some stuff out for a while, but then the cost of maintaining that equipment starts becoming to a point of it's no longer working when you need it, or the cost of just replacing or repairing it starts becoming a wash. I mean, anybody who's had an old car long enough knows at some point it just nickels and dimes you to death. So that's where our equipment stands. But we do have a window because we have been doing fairly well in our maintenance of trying to keep what we have going. So we have a window where we could go for a while, but it's short. The other side of things we were looking at was projects. The first, probably the biggest project we could cut for a while is our arterial street resurfacing. That can buy us some time, but I just want to caution you, it is a ticking time bomb, especially in Kansas. The longer we let a road go with just doing what we can do maintenance in-house, which is crack sealing and potholing, those roads just keep getting worse and worse, and the cost of replacing them starts to go up higher and higher. So just a couple little facts I wanted to give you. I mean, Kansas is actually just an area that's really hard on streets in general. We have a lot of three-stall cycles compared to other states. Even northern states, they freeze, but they don't freeze-fall as frequently. So their roads don't have to take the abuse that we do, where we like to have all 4 seasons sometimes in the same week. But typical for in Kansas, typically a street brand new, just got done, you should get 15 to 25 years. Sometimes you can get that up to 30 with cycles of repair. If we decided to reduce what we're doing right now, our cycle is arterial roads go about every 20 years before they get resurfaced. So you take all the arterial and connector roads in town and you try to break that out over a 20-year cycle. That's why we do so much each year. If we decided to back that off for a while, we're going to start getting more potholing. We're going to get more asphalt cracking, and just rideability of the roads becomes an issue. With that rideability, we're going to uptick in calls. People's going to be putting in more and more C-click fixes. So that's just one of the things I wanted to throw at you, just to keep in mind. When we look at these, we can put these off for a while, but if we do, and the biggest thing my department has to offer is these projects. We could make some cuts to personnel, but the more we let the roads fail, the more we're going to need that personnel just to take care of. And the other hidden cost behind that is the more we take care of having people going out and doing potholes and stuff, where does that give for that? So that same staff that's doing that is the same staff that's out street sweeping, that is out putting up signs, taking care of the traffic lights, cleaning the ditches and the stormwater and the levee system. So as we continue to go from defunding one structure, we're going to have to pull people from those others just to maintain those. So just wanted to kind of let you know on that, how that looks, and maintenance on a pothole and stuff versus a reconstruct. So for those of it who lived in Hutchinson a while, 11th Street on the west side was a prime example of a street that just got completely to its end of its life. And it was up for a reconstruct numerous times and kept getting pushed back. Well, when it finally had to be done, it was what we called a complete base-up reconstruct. And it's probably the most expensive thing you can do in the roads versus just building a new road from scratch. So that's a prime example of when you let a road go to that extreme, then you're going to spend the most money you have to get it back up to standard. Doing mill and overlays every 20 years is probably in the long run the actual cheapest thing you can do to roads to maintain them. But there is a cost, and unfortunately, for me looking into budgets and Enrico looking into budgets, streets are one of the most expensive things we have to take care of, along with utilities. So right now we could punt these, and like I said, we're looking at our arterials, probably about $1.5 million if we don't do it for 1 year, but that's going to keep ticking as we go through. So, and then
You don't have a calculation of what the potential increase in pothole and crack seal needs would be, do you?
Not
It's
right
not
off.
calculable.
It's still one of those things that, I mean, I've talked to people that's been in the business for years, and it just has certain roads you can maintain really well for short times. Others, as they continue to fail, you can just consider that uptick. You can have crews out 40% of their time could start to rise just in taking care of potholes versus where we're at now, where my crews right now, the majority of their time's not on potholes. They're out doing all the other projects that need to be done. Where we're down to, we have crews looking for potholes, and we rely heavily on See-Click Fix for people to report them. A couple of years ago, when we were in this same boat before we had some other things done, about 10 years ago, there was literally, I would have people out, especially on a nice cold winter day, for 2 weeks straight doing nothing but 3 crews driving around looking for potholes to patch them because they were that bad. And there was too many for people to even call in a request, because where do they stop? We've got our roads in a decent position now, which is why if we have to, we could take a year or so and kind of punt for a while, but I would just caution that if we punt too long, we're going to get ourselves in a bind. So, and then like I said, this is just some of the pictures along that, what it looks like, the services that would suffer. We wouldn't be having ditch maintenance, street sweepers, alley grading, all those ones that we tend to get a number of See-Click Fixes for. Those would be the processes that would have to take a back seat because potholes become a safety issue, especially on the arterials. Happy to answer any questions on what we're looking at.
I have a question. We currently, can you go back to that other slide? We currently have the arterial street resurfacing on an 8-year rotation by council district.
Residential,
Residential's on 8 years?
yes.
Okay. Based on the rotation where it is right now, I know we just did northeast, north of 30th,
Yes.
and a couple other spots I can't think of. What would be the next rotation that we would be moving to this year?
Honestly,
that we would
I
skip?
wasn't looking at that when I was getting this together. I'd have to go back and look at it. It's not,
Okay.
it's not like we don't go around in an order.
Okay.
Those 8 cycles were based on square footage. So we tried to get as equal as we could, those 8 to be the same square footage. So they're not necessarily in order where we don't go around them like a clock.
Okay.
We may hit one up north and then the next one's down south, or to east or west. But it is, I do have a map I can get you guys that has the 8-year cycle. And then as far as arterial streets go, we keep a record of those, like when they were paved, what they look like. We do our general maintenance, which is what we call a 2-year and 5-year crack sealing on a resurfaced road. After that 5th year, we maintain and watch it and see. And then about every 5 years after that, we'll crack seal it and see what it needs. And then we try not to let them get past that 20-year mark, but we actually at that point, it starts becoming a PCI rating issue, which is pavement index. So we'll watch those roads as they get to a certain point, usually around 60%. So a brand new perfect road is 100%. As it ages, it drops down, usually in 10% increments. Around 60% is when we really want to start watching that and seeing if that's a good candidate for an overlay. Once it gets past that 50 to 40% mark, that's when you're looking at a road that's a really good candidate for a complete reconstruct. So, and honestly, because of the budget we have, typically we try to keep them in that 60% or better. If they get into the 40% and it's really expensive, they're not going to cost us any more once they get there. So sometimes they do suffer and wait longer till we have the money to fix them. We'll still be going out and doing general maintenance as far as patching, but we try to keep those better roads and better just so we don't have to spend as much money. But there's no true cycle to the arterials as far as a set. We're going to do this every. We really rely on that PCI rating to tell us when we're going to do arterials.
Any other questions?
I guess I have one remark. I guess I had been, the way West 11th had always been explained to me was that it was a very intentional project and that we kind of swooped in and did all of it at once. 'Cause I don't know what year that was done. Do you know what year that was?
That would have been 3 years ago, I believe, when it was finished.
That's it?
Yeah.
Anyway, it seems like my interpretation of how it was told was that it was a very intentional. We swooped in, did everything all at once. I guess I didn't understand that it had gotten to a point of being beyond repair, that it had been delayed and delayed and delayed to.
Yeah,
to
I
that.
mean, and once they get to that point, now the intentional part was once we decided that we were going to do it, we started looking at everything else that would need to be done under surface. So utility work was done at the same time, and that's when that plan starts coming together. But yeah, the road itself, it wasn't necessarily intention that it gets to that point. It really was budgetary.
Right, and that's a wise move to then, if you're gonna dig it all up to the base anyway, you might as well look at everything under there.
Yes.
In this case, if we got to that point, it seems like we would be operating on a emergency shoestring budget, and we would not be like, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and give this one the Cadillac treatment and
Yeah.
look at all the pipes and everything. Probably just put some concrete on it and move on.
And we're being very intentional now, even with roads that we're going to do a mill and overlay. We're also taking that time to look at, is there any utility work in the area that needs to be done? Ideally, you want to do all your utility work before you resurface a road, because as an asphalt guy, nothing just hits me harder than we just put a brand new road out and it looks beautiful and there's a patch in the middle of it. So
It's like Murphy's Law.
exactly.
Yeah, and I do want to include a few things here, council members, that when it comes to equipment, we have seen the value of investing properly in our equipment. So think of all the stormwater detention basins that we've installed throughout, or at least that we've started installing throughout the city. That was due to having the right equipment and then having our folks trained to be able to operate it. And then subsequently, if we started cutting back on the equipment needs that we have, then that just puts us further behind on everything that we're trying to accomplish present day. So largely I'm thinking of the FEMA floodplain map. And there's a list there. I know it's hard to see. But utilities doesn't have a specific slide here, primarily because I think we've seen what underfunding our utilities has brought us, that there's really nothing to cut when there are things falling apart. So I know we've debated that quite extensively, especially going through our utility rate increases. So there wasn't really much to hash out. But there is quite the list there. I think, Cecil, can you remind me, the yellow is punt, but the red is keep?
Yeah, so anything that we highlighted in yellow over the next few years is something we felt the equipment is sound now. We felt we could hold on to it for a while and maybe punt it out a year or two, depending on. Anything in red we felt was enough of a vital piece of equipment that we can't afford to have it broke down long. So a lot of the stuff in red is going to be the Vector trucks, a couple of the bucket trucks. Luckily, those are both fairly new, so they're not on this list, but they would have been in red. And then a couple other primary pieces of equipment. A couple of the tractors that we need for mowing all the big ditches, and a couple of other skid steer that we need for when we're actually excavating projects. So, as you can see, this list is actually Dave and I's. This is utilities and public works equipment. So out of all the equipment we were looking at that's up in the next 3 years, we only picked 4 of them we felt were vital enough that we can't take the chance that it'll be broke down. And it's usually pieces of equipment that we don't have a backup for. So the Vactors, if we have to go clean either a storm line or a sanitary sewer line, that's the only piece of equipment we have to do it. So if we don't have those, what are we going to do?
How many of those do we own right now?
So the storm side has 1 Vactor, and the sanitary has 2 Vactors.
And so on there, you've got 2 for,
I believe one of the Vactors wasn't out for it wasn't in this gun.
sewer cleaner, the other one says Vector.
Yeah. So one of those is for sanitary, and one of those is the one for storm. We typically don't like to we don't want to cross-contaminate them, because there's some
Gotcha.
EPA issues. So that's why we have separate Vactors. There is a redundancy in the sanitary sewer side. They have 2 of them, but it's a very hardly used, or not hardly, a very hard used piece of equipment that does have maintenance cycles that have to be taken care of, like anything. It's something we don't want to take the chance. If one of them's broke down, Murphy's Law would be that the other one will break down
Well,
right
it's
in
a
the middle of something.
$500,000 truck.
Yes.
You're gonna need to do maintenance.
Yep.
And council, we've had I think a strong position over at least the past 2 years on self-performing a lot of work versus subbing out a lot. And one way to do that is just to have the right equipment.
If we didn't have functioning Vector trucks available at all, what's a worst case scenario? To be honest, I don't know that I know what it does.
I think I'll let Dave handle that one. From my side, it's not as bad as his.
So worst case scenario, if we
Is
don't
this like
have, we can't clean our sewer
Poop
lines.
coming up from somewhere, or
Yeah, essentially, yes. And we use them all the time at the plant as well. We have digester issues out there where we have to unplug digesters, and if we can't unplug those, then you have all kinds of problems out there. So worst case scenario, you got sewer running in places where it's not supposed to be.
because your digesters are digesting biosolids.
Basically your guts, yep. It's your guts out there.
So if we didn't have functioning vac trucks, is that something that you can borrow from another city?
I don't know that. I don't know. Maybe.
Is there like mutual aid for?
To my knowledge, we've never gone out to borrow one from another city. There again, they probably are in the same boat as we wouldn't want to loan ours out, because there is a possibility of some rentals, but they're going to get really expensive really fast because they're a very specialty piece of equipment, which means they can charge pretty much whatever they want.
And part of, just in talking with my peers about budget issues generally, that when it comes to the cost going up substantially for these large pieces of equipment, it's because most municipalities need them all at the same time. And so then that increases demand. And so then you get the backlog why it takes 4 years to get a fire truck. And it just makes things more expensive. So naturally, if we're in this predicament, other municipalities are too.
That's a good question. Is there a delay on how long it takes to get one of these?
Yeah,
Because
so
this is fiscal year 28.
a Vactor, typically we will order it. We're a little better than Chief is with fire trucks. It's not quite 4 years, but it's upped. Used to be we could order one and get it the following year. Now it's pushing out to about 1.5 years by the time we order it to a build date. Same thing with like our bucket trucks. We literally paid for that 1.5 years ago, and they're building it now. It wasn't necessarily that it takes them that long to build it. There's only so many places building them, and they have build dates. So you kind of have to get yourself on the list to make sure you have one before your old one's broke.
So we've deferred, so that's $1 million between 2 trucks in fiscal year 28.
Yep.
And we've pushed this off, and you're saying that it is at that point in that year that it cannot be pushed off any longer.
Actually, those weren't
Those weren't delayed.
delayed.
per se.
These are the
Okay.
ones we're saying we shouldn't delay.
Should not be delayed. Okay. Because you're looking at, you're going to purchase it in 28, you're going to get it delivered in probably 30.
29 or 30, yeah. And these, so the entire spreadsheet's not up here. It wasn't to fit, but this is something our central garage, they manage all this equipment, and they can give us a spreadsheet on how much we've spent on that maintenance over the last life of the piece of equipment and how that's upticked over the last few years. And we start seeing whether that trend is this a piece of equipment we think is going to break? We don't just typically look at it and say, okay, every 10 years we replace it. We start looking at the 5 years out and saying, okay, where does this piece of equipment fall in that? Is it becoming a maintenance issue? If it is a maintenance issue, how expensive or how regular are parts to get? And that's how we put this list together. So everything on the list, it's not just, hey, it's an old truck, let's replace it. We start really watching that. What maintenance have we done? What are we expecting to come? Especially if we have two trucks that are built in the same model year or close to it, we can start seeing some trends. Like this one already had this happen and this happen. We're expecting this truck to do the same, and that one cost us this much. So should we look at it as a trade-in or try to get it while we still got some life left to it?
And these are both 2018s, aren't they?
I believe so, yes.
So you got them pretty much the same time then.
Yep.
So what's length of life on them? I'm sure there's mileage on them, but there's also probably hours on the actual back system itself.
It's primarily the hours. They don't get a lot of mileage. I mean, they're not traveling. Most of the time you'll see it. It's setting on a job site. It's mainly from the shop to the job site, and then it's in place running.
So it's the vac unit is what's going to be.
Yeah, it's not the chassis of the truck itself. It's the actual unit.
So how many hours do you normally expect? I mean, what do they have on them now? Any ideas?
I would have to pull the whole thing up, and it's about this long.
Of
So,
course,
I'd have to
just
pull that up.
curious.
But I could get you that information.
Is this the same MERP spreadsheet that was on our budget handout
Yeah.
from the
Yep.
summer? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
You
this
just
may have a few
colored on it.
updated numbers, and I colored some stuff, or staff colored some stuff, just so we could have some quick references.
Okay.
And that's the only two units we own.
We
For the
we
vac
have,
units.
Vacs.
well, 4 sanitary. Well, one of those is sanitary. There's 2 sanitary units. The other one's not on this list
Oh, so
because
it's not on this list then?
no.
Okay.
And then there's one for stormwater.
Okay.
But like I said, we try not to cross contaminate them when we can.
No, I get. Are they all about the same age?
No, the one's about 3 years newer.
Okay.
So it's not on this list because it's just past that limit.
Gotcha.
It would have been probably on the 2030, 2031 area.
So if you're really looking to replace these, and you're talking end of life with them. By the time you get it actually on property, it's gonna be a little over 10 years old. Then.
Yep.
Okay.
And I will add that Jesse, who runs the central garage, I have a lot of faith and confidence in his work and his staff's work. So when I got here last year, I was definitely quizzing Jesse and Cecil, like, okay, how often are we replacing vehicles? Is it just because of years, or like, what are we doing? What's the science behind this? And Jesse, explained that he could pull up work orders for every single piece of equipment, down to an oil change to replacing transmission, whatever the case may be. He runs a very tight ship over there, and I have a very high confidence. So usually when he says this needs to be replaced, because I know his character and how highly he takes his job, I believe him. And I know he had a lot of work in color coding this as well. So I really respect Jesse and the work that him and his staff do.
Well, and I think that there's not always in government versus private life, there's not always a lot of parallels that you can draw. But when you talk about, I own a vehicle that I have to put $400 every time I turn around into some kind of repair versus somebody who owns a newer vehicle who doesn't have that same repair cycle, that's something that's relatable to just about anybody.
Yeah.
And you're either going to put up with it and keep dumping that $400 a month into the vehicle, or you're going to take that $400 a month and finance a new vehicle.
And to add on top of that, it's just the fact that also, if that $400, you're spending on your vehicle and it leaves you stranded,
Right.
that's horrible. Nobody wants to see that. But for us, sometimes that vectors and stuff, that's what's caused, stopping a major catastrophe. Or sometimes our vector units have actually been used to help the fire department in a rescue if it's somebody that's buried, when they can't use any heavy equipment to dig. So, I mean, it is pieces of equipment that we use daily, and we want it to make sure it's working when it's there.
And these are. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna throw in there, we use it on the water side too.
Mhm.
If we're digging around a whole bunch of fiber optics, and expensive those are to cut, or the big deals that can be, we'll factor that stuff out of there so that we We use them like crazy.
And these are more of a specialized, I mean, you can go out and buy a 1-ton Dodge 4-wheel drive truck pretty much all day long. When you get into something like this, you gotta go, okay, this is specific use. If we lose this, we're not gonna go find one tomorrow.
No, and
so
these are
that's what we've gotta
these
be
are on
careful.
tandem axle,
Yeah.
basically semi-truck frames, so.
Yeah, no, so I totally understand that too. It's like, it's not something you can just take out there and go, oh, we'll go get one of these at, our local Lowe's, we'll be good to go, so
Yep.
whatever, so.
All right. I think, you ready for Park Department?
I want to chime in here 1 second here, just to add on to what city manager and what Cecil said here about maintenance here. Just so you guys understand here too, is that on the fire side of things, our fleet department keeps us on the road 24/7, 365. We've been able to have, by having qualified mechanics, emergency vehicle technician certified mechanics, we've been able to save well into 6 digits per year on maintenance. We've been able to extend our apparatus life by 3 years. Them are real numbers again too. Kudos to our fleet department.
And if you've never met Rick, I mean, he's a real pleasure. He takes great pride in the work that he does in the garage.
So on the park side, the cuts kind of look like would look like kind of a hybrid of the two options you just kind of heard. So on fire department, it was personnel. Public Works, it was projects. And parks, it's kind of a blend of the two. I think to make some sort of a meaningful impact to the budget. So the first slide talks about what a staff reduction would look like. Realistically, to make that impact, we would have to reduce staff. Just based on a snapshot of today, it would be to allow a few positions that are currently vacant to remain vacant. Those are positions in horticulture and forestry and in park operations, also building maintenance. So there's $235,000 roughly there, including benefits for those three, and those are all frontline worker type employees. Those are not supervisors. But what the impact of that is it's going to reduce our ability to maintain our parks and our buildings. I mean, if we've got less people doing the work, we're not going to keep up. I don't know that you've ever went to a park and be like, man, this park is pristine. Every blade of grass is cut. Every tree's been edged around. Those sorts of things. Those issues just continue to grow. It would also impact our ability to add anything new. And when I say new, I don't mean a new park. I mean, Harsha Park. Right now, it's a backstop, and that's it. We got some letters from the neighborhood asking for improvements. Anything we do that improves existing parks, that's going to add maintenance. So I think it greatly reduces our ability to improve the stuff we already have. And the other piece of it is last year we did a pretty major reorganization as far as how we maintain our parks, and we divided up in the regions, assigned some full-time personnel to different places. We did much better this past growing season than we have previously, and I think all those gains that we made over the past year that I'm hoping to build on for this next year, I think all those kind of go out the window at that point if we're looking at removing personnel. So to put it bluntly, there would be a noticeable difference in how our parks looked, as well as our building maintenance. The other piece then would be we'd have to look at projects. And so I've just identified a few, and just because they're on this list doesn't mean these would be my first. These are just examples, just to kind of paint the picture. The first one is the Jim Martinez Trail. So starting in 27 to 27, 28, 29, the intent is to repave the entire length of that trail. It's an expensive project. If you've been on it recently, you know about every 10 feet you hit a 4-inch wide transverse crack in that asphalt. So maybe that project takes 5 years instead of 3 years, or 6 years instead of 3 years. Already mentioned Harsha Park, a couple $100,000 in 27. Maybe that gets punted or pushed back. Elmdale Park's kind of in that same boat. I mean, there's not much there now. We'd love to improve that for that neighborhood. Maybe that one has to get pushed back. The dog park improvements, something that's been around for a while. There's also a whole string of items within Cary Park, as you can see. And some of these are the lights that are there in 2028, something that are the public wants. I mean, it's dark in Cary Park if you haven't been there at night. So don't think this is just, we're not going to add new things. It's going to limit our ability to maintain what we have. And really, we would go into a pure maintenance mode. So things like parking lots and trails and those sorts of things are going to get repaved. But those amenities probably wouldn't be approved. And it's easy to say, hey, we're just going to take care of what we got. But we know every budget season, the public gets excited about projects. About Grace Arbor Park is a great one that, we had an idea for it, we cut it, neighborhood wasn't happy, we ended up coming back and funding that. So I think those are the types of things that we'll continue to see time and time again.
Can I ask you a question
Yeah.
on the previous slide?
Yep.
Farmington Park, what year was it in the CAP? Do you recall? Was it 28 or 29?
The new playground at Farmington, I want to say 29. It's in that range,
Okay.
yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
And again, I was just picking some,
Yeah.
just to kind of paint the picture. So, and then also would have to look at, the golf course would be another place to look. They run on extremely lean staff. I don't know if there's staff there to eliminate. So we'd have to look at some of these projects. The challenge with some of these is actually both of these projects will generate revenue, and so then we're making these choices. Do we invest? In some clubhouse renovations, which include a golf simulator, which is going to get people in the clubhouse, days like tomorrow or later this week when it's going to be really nasty. There'll be a few guys down there drinking coffee, but if we had golf simulators, we might be driving some revenue. So I think we'll get into some discussions about things that could potentially be beneficial in the long run at the golf course. So as well as you can put the zoo in the same boat. If we start reducing things there, that's an economic driver and driving people to our community. So I didn't look on the MRF side as much. Generally, parks equipment isn't near as expensive as public works, and especially fire. But there'd be an impact there. We'd push things back. But we're generally buying, 1-ton pickups and commercial mowers and that kind of stuff. We do have a few pieces of really expensive equipment, but for the most part, it's, nothing. We don't have a $500,000 truck anywhere. So. Okay, questions? Okay. Community development.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Matt Williams, Director of Community Development. Community Development is a much smaller department than the other departments we've discussed so far. We don't have much equipment besides vehicles for some of our permitting inspectors. We don't have facilities. So a lot of if we were to save any money in the Community Development Department, it would likely come from either programs that we support or from staff that we have. So these are just proposed things that it would really come down to City Council trying to have a discussion with us on what was the most important and what we should focus on. Up here you see, reducing the funding for demolition and blight remediation programs. We have the commercial facade improvement program that we just introduced this year. We just started it at the beginning of January. We've already have several applications for that. Probably going to exceed the requests are going to exceed the funding already just in January. So that's something the community obviously has taken towards. The amount of funding that we have for demolition this year has been a big priority for council. Continuing to see the reduction in blight in our community is obviously a priority for the citizens and for council. But there's also money we have for housing programs. We have a little over $100,000 that we use to support some of Interfaith's programs. That could be something that we look at decreasing. Other than that, we have positions. And each of these positions comes with a trade-off. If we eliminated a permit technician, we're talking about increased time for residents to hear back from us on code cases or to get a building permit. If we eliminated a building inspector, we're going to have longer times between building inspections. We run on a pretty lean department. There aren't extra positions anywhere. Obviously, if we eliminated the housing coordinator, we're going to lose a lot of progress on the housing initiatives that we've had over the last couple of years. Happy to talk through any of this, but my department's pretty lean. There's not much to cut without kind of big consequences.
When you say eliminate the permit technician, the code compliance officer, the building inspector, those would be 3 layoffs. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, this what
And the
I put
housing
together here
coordinator
was just
would
kind of
not fill.
Say that again.
You would not fill. Well, I guess we will. That
would-
position is open, but we would have one. You would lay them off.
Well, these
if it doesn't
positions are
pass.
filled right now.
Right.
So this would be kind of a menu of options based on city council's priorities. What the position or what programs you think that we should look at first to eliminate based on your priorities.
And to be clear, to get to where we need to be, if the sales tax does not pass, we're looking at a combination of all of these
Correct.
solutions.
Correct.
Some from fire, some from parks, some from everything.
And largely, I mean, as we go through this, the common denominator is there's really nothing to cut. And it's going to come down to really painful decision points on, like we've stated several times already, it's people. And nobody wants to do that. I don't. I know you 5 don't, and none of the department heads do either. Unfortunately, that's just where we're at. And that's just, I guess going a little on the memory lane here. Around 2 years ago, when I was looking at the budget and I just arrived here, our fund balance was around like negative 5 million, negative maybe 5.1. And Angela and I got to know each other pretty quickly. And through several maneuverings and making some cuts at that time, kicking some projects down the road, we got it from negative to positive. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but now we can say that there's at least 5 million in the fund balance. It should be around 7, but future forecasts that is going to go down just with the cost of everything else going up. So it's largely, again, like what Matt said, a series of trade-offs every year. And historically, that's how we have always operated, as just trade-off after trade-off after trade-off, or in the community's voice, cuts. We want cuts. Unfortunately, this is where we're at. And that's, I know we have several more slides to go, but that's really why the sales tax is so crucial for what we're trying to achieve. From all the work we've done with blight, to all the fire rescues we've performed so far. The sales tax is to keep the lights on. And I know that I have received a little bit of community pushback on not including childcare and other things within this proposed sales tax. But the reality is elements of what was talked about were kept, like quality of life, like investing in our parks. Investing in our facilities, at least making the things we have look nice. But it certainly wasn't an all-encompassing sales tax like the original goal was, because, many people don't know what I was looking at. So I wanted to go down memory lane for a second, but Angela, if you have anything to kind of shore up, or if I hit everything. But yeah, sorry, Matt, but I wanted to interject a little.
Well, I think to me what is represented on this slide is the momentum that we've seen in the past 2-3 years that I've been on council. And I'm not saying I'm the person responsible, but I'm saying that's obviously my history of knowledge. So the code compliance officer, we had one new position in that department, which kind of right sizes us for a city of our size. And since that person coming on, we've been able to increase the number of tickets that are responded to, cases that are responded to, et cetera. Those are almost purely complaint driven, coming from residents. And eliminating that position means we go back to one person, which is not right size for our city. And we're not going to respond in the same time. But the work doesn't go away. We still have just as many cases to respond to. We still have just as many complaints. But it's going to take us longer to get to them because some of them are more complex than others, et cetera. So when we talk about the momentum that we've built over the past couple of years, the housing coordinator, building inspector, those are positions that have, even though they work largely behind the scenes, and unless you're building a house or building something, you don't know what they do and you don't interact with them, but that doesn't mean that they're not crucial and super important. Cutting off demolition and blight remediation programs. I mean, when we're looking at just in the past 6 months, we had 10 or 12 hearings, and Mr. Lady sent me the updated numbers of all of those. I think all but 3 of them have significant progress. One of them's already been turned into a revenue generating business. And I mean, that right there tells you that that it works, that we've accomplished something with those programs. Just by holding people accountable for code that's been on the books since the 70s.
I would also add that having a well-staffed department, especially within building and codes, that adds to a business-friendly environment. So like what we've heard from Raju and several others within the past 6 to 8 months, a lot of them have cited how easy we were to work with. They can call in same-day inspections, and we can be there to help them out. I mean, then it could turn into, well, we'll see you in a week because we don't have the staffing and someone called in sick. I mean, that's probably what would happen.
Well, and if there's 250 homes under development, you're not getting them inspected in a timely manner, and you're not getting plans approved, and you're not doing anything in a timely manner.
Correct. I think you're going to hear from community partners who have supported housing if we were to eliminate that position. I mean, we have hundreds of potential units coming in the next few years because of our housing coordinator and the efforts we put behind that. And obviously you get comments about blight around town. I mean, we spent several years not focusing on blight, and now that we've started focusing on it, if we took our foot off the gas, we'd just go backwards. And you would definitely hear if, you know, it took a week extra to get a permit or a couple days extra to get an inspection.
The housing coordinator, I've been asked about that position and about refilling it because we're losing that person.
Correct.
That position just hadn't been filled for a long time. That position is not a new position we created. We just filled it a couple of years ago. And this is a lot of what's going on with our budget is we're almost fully staffed. We have like a 4% vacancy rate on our total budgeted staff, and we were using all the vacancies to help balance the budget along with the ending fund balance, and here we are. I just want to point out that maybe we did add a couple positions, but some of the positions have just gotten filled, and we're moving forward as a city, and I think we're seeing the results of having a better staff. I know we're seeing it with police, and we've seen it with fire.
Yeah, looking at those, the only new one is the additional code compliance officer.
Right,
Is
and
that
that
correct?
one has really allowed us to go from, I mean, if you think about it in the summer, our one code compliance officer spends the whole summer on tall weeds and grass because that's overwhelming and everybody's complaining about it. Having a second person really allows us to start being a little more proactive with our property maintenance violations around the city during the summer, but then also both in the wintertime can focus on more proactive versus just complaint driven.
Oh, the further comment, I got a call today. It was actually a call. Hey, why did you create a new position for the downtown coordinator, manager, whatever you want to call it? And I said, time out, not a new position. We're moving it from the chamber in under the city. Same position, same dollars. So it may appear that we are adding these positions We are not. They were added long before any of us came along.
He's probably getting fired too.
What?
Is he on that list too?
Yeah, that position is not in my department.
Oh, okay.
And I
on the
would
next
say, if that position's eliminated, we lose a lot of resources we get from the state.
Yeah.
And just credibility from the community too.
Yeah, I mean, all right, that's all I have. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, Council. Dave Sotelo, Director of Strategic Growth. So, mentioned earlier, the downtown position is one of those positions that we have not added. It's been a position we've been funding. It's just back at the city. But we have been increasing programming that we're spending on downtown and then CIP for downtown improvements. So, just today we met with Public Works and Parks for design for some archway, welcoming people into downtown, some really exciting projects that we have in the pipeline. Those projects would be out of the picture over the next 3 years if the sales tax issue would not pass, as well as programming for downtown. So we're increasing some of the things that we've heard from neighborhood stakeholders, downtown stakeholders, is increasing marketing around making downtown a destination for visitors who are visiting the Cosmosphere, Stratica, to remind them that, we have great amenities in downtown Hutchinson to come visit. So some of that programming would be eliminated as well. And then lastly, the Human Relations Officer and programming. So it's combined the position and the programming that we have there. And so that would eliminate the position. It's currently open, so we have an opening for the Human Relations Officer, but we just would not fill the position if this were to not pass. I'll just mention shortly, just over the past 2 years that we've had a strategic growth department. Most of those positions, so there was 3 positions that were added. Now they sit at different departments. We've done some restructuring. So the communications manager, the housing coordinator, and the human relations officer, those were not new positions. They were all just filled positions that we had not filled in a few years. I think that those 3 positions are doing incredible work around housing, around communications. We've really, it was just great for departments to work together today and send a presentation to communicate that. But beyond that, you'll hear more around communications and how important it is to have that position for the city. Around human relations, we receive funding from the Community Foundation. So there's a generous donor who's provided annual funding, so around $20,000 that we can spend. And we've had that since 2020. The Community Foundation has provided annual funding for programming. So we would lose that grant that we have for the Community Foundation because the condition for us receiving that grant is to have a full-time human relations officer. Separately, just reminding people that a lot of the things that we're doing is bringing more additional funds into the organization. So you saw the work of the STAR bonds today. We can't really cut that work because most of that is involved around staffing, right? It's me making sure that we're moving through those procedural steps through that process. We've also brought additional grants to the city. So we have a $20,000 grant from the Community Foundation for some of our communications effort. They funded it one before for $10,000 for our new look that we have and our communication strategy that we've implemented. Then lastly, we have a $100,000 grant, again, from the Community Foundation for housing efforts. That grant is going to help us help local developers create a new base of new developers in our community. That was an item identified in the housing study. It's something that we get here. A lot of folks come in and say, we'd love to start flipping homes, revitalizing homes, adding new, working in real estate development, but we don't know where to start. Well, none of us are experts here in this building, so the best thing we can do is refer them to other folks who've done that. This grant is going to allow us to have a program where we'll provide coaching, education, cohort-style training for folks to do that development. So a lot of the work that we're doing in my department is grant-funded. What we're largely paying for is staff. And so those are the items that we would cut. We're a really small department currently, 3 positions, human relations, downtown revitalization, and then my position as well. Any questions?
The human rights officer is currently, it's not mandated by the state, but we have a city ordinance that mandates this position.
We have a city ordinance that calls for the creation of the human relations officer, yeah.
Okay. That was my only question.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Who's next?
So the finance department's budget is largely personnel, software, and then the audit. And the audit's required by the state, so we can't cut that. So the software budget could be cut by approximately $30,000 if we eliminate ClearGov, which is our budget software that produces what you see online and all the graphics that are printed out. So if we eliminate this, we would go back to doing payroll by Excel and formulas and would be quite more labor intensive. Different budget scenarios would also be harder to recreate. This last budget, Enrico had me doing lots of different what if we did this or that. And those are going to be quite more time consuming and they wouldn't be able to be produced right away. We also may not be able to produce a GFOA budget award winning budget anymore, which oddly enough is something that they factor into our ISO rating. That's something that Chief Beer reports on, and that helps us with the ISO rating. I did learn that the cost of this software is going to be increased significantly after 2028, so it's something we'll be reevaluating anyway. But again, it would just be more labor intensive, and with the reduction in personnel that I've experienced since I've been here, I just don't see how we could create a GFOA award-winning budget anymore. So that would be the finance part. For utility billing, all the costs for the utility billing department are reimbursed by the utility funds, water, sewer, stormwater, and refuse. But to be a team player, there are 2 items we could look at doing. We could look at charging credit card fees for using your credit cards. This is something a lot of other cities are doing, though I understand there would be a lot of pushback with that. It would not generally help the general fund, except for smaller departments like animal shelter, golf, parks, inspections. Those we would be able to recapture our credit card fees. We could also charge fees for if you receive paper bills, or you could get a discount if you do electronic bills. This is something I've seen other cities do as well, though they have experienced pushback with that, with implementing that. So, any questions regarding that?
So if you cut your software budget, how much more staff would you have to add to take?
I mean, really what happened was I lost a staff, so, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, whenever Chief Beer stole Becky from me. And instead of replacing her, we got budget software to help make up that difference. So likely I would need another staff to replace. It would, or we just don't do quite as intensive of a budget and we don't submit it to GFOA.
Yeah, I don't think you're hiring anybody for less than 29.
No.
The GFOA budget award, does that have an impact on our bond rating?
I don't know that getting the award itself directly impacts our bond rating, but they do look through our budget when we are doing our evaluations with Moody's. They do pick up on the information we provide in there. We give explanations on why the general fund balance isn't where it was supposed to be, but what we plan on doing. So they really do look at that budget book.
Would the CIP project of the modernization of meters still go through, or would that be something that we would be putting on the chopping block?
I did not consider chopping that. I think eventually what you will see when we implement the AMI technology to automate meter reads is that you may be able to eliminate a truck or a water tech position, possibly. So there may be savings that offset those costs. If we were to eliminate a water tech right now, I don't know that we would be able to implement that in the time that we're saying, that the company is saying we need to implement by, because they'll switch technologies and we'll have a hard time reading our meters. Would probably have to read about half of them by hand if we don't meet their deadline in a few years. So,
Because the trade-off with that software is that you're front-loading the expense of the install of the, the technology and the new meters, but then you're saving because you're more than likely cutting a truck and a technician.
plus
And
you'll
there's a
have
monthly subscription with that from us?
there's a yearly subscription
okay.
with that too, but also you have to think about revenue as well, because right now if somebody has an undetectable water leak, we write off about half of that excess water. It's something most cities do, and so if we can tell a customer that they have a water leak earlier, obviously better customer service, but on the back end we're not writing off that water that we've paid to treat and has been lost. So
And wasting our precious resource.
And we've been trying very hard to reduce the percentage of our non-revenue water loss. And that wouldn't help any. I mean, meters are something we should probably fund a lot more than we currently do anyway.
all right.
Thank you, Andrew.
Stacy Eves with Emergency Communications. So the first three, those that $12,000, that was just automatically from historical use of those funds. We don't ever come close to using what was budgeted, so those were easy to cut down without any impact for us. We have $35,000 that we could move over to our 911s for the year. That's not a permanent solution to continue to do that. We like to save those funds for emergencies when we have critical infrastructure that needs to be repaired. But for this year, we have enough in there we could do that. We've also collectively, as public safety, we're waiting to move our cloud migration of the CAD to 2028. It was originally slated for this year, and that was approximately like a $350,000 project. It's not imperative that we move this year. If it gets pushed off a couple of years, that's okay. It gives us time to continue to negotiate on the contract and let some other people go first on making the move to the cloud. So we're pretty comfortable where we're at right now on that. Other than that, we've really trimmed our budget the past couple years. We've gone through every single account that we have and made sure that it's still valid, that we're getting the best rates. So beyond that, we didn't have a whole lot to cut. We use all the money that we get from 911 funds we use so we can relieve the general fund budget as much as possible.
Are you fully staffed?
Yes.
It's been a while since we had that.
We've been maintaining full staff for about a year and a half now. We just have that like one maybe 2 positions that kind of fluctuate with time. So, but yeah, we've been doing really good on staffing.
Thank you for fixing that department.
So, and you know, having more staff relieves some stress from our dispatchers. I mean, we're actually, our average experience has gone from below a year, we're at like 3 years now.
That's
So,
exactly what I mean.
yeah.
Fixing that.
And that doesn't include me, the old lady of the department. So, yeah, our younger staff are staying. So it's exciting to see.
Good, it's not an easy job.
Yeah. So beyond some of these smaller things, we'd be looking at cutting staff or services to the public or our responders. So,
And we don't want to cut staff.
no, I don't want to cut services that help our responders too, because we also account for 10% of the ISO rating. So some of the things we have in place are helping with that as well.
I think for people who don't understand what the ISO rating is, that impacts our home insurance. And yes, and home insurance has gone up exponentially in the state of Kansas in the past 5-10 years. But in Hutch specifically, because of our ISO rating, it's a huge discount essentially, because we can say and back it up with facts that if there's a emergency fire, that chief has saved, what'd you say, like 400 million or 4 million? You said 400 million in property in 1 year, and the insurance underwriters take that to heart, and that's what the ISO rating is, and that's going to hit people hard if we have a 10% just from emergency communications, and then we have the hit in finance, and then we have the hit in HFD. I don't want my insurance went up a
Me neither.
ton. I don't want it to go up again just for nothing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Todd Davis, Director of IT, and I'm a little embarrassed because my stuff on here is awful small. But the first thing I wanted to do was kind of highlight city as a general's behavior, and that behavior is if there's something to cut, we cut it before we even start talking about making cuts. So the things on this page right here is $48,000 or whatever. That's stuff that I just got rid of last year that we didn't need to spend, and so we just didn't spend it. It's not like we're going out and spending every dollar that you guys budget for us. We're really frugal all year long, every day, and we're cutting little tiny things like, digital signs at the golf course and things because we found a little bit more efficient way to do that. So that's everybody in this room that does that. I mean, we are cutting all the time. So went the wrong direction. I don't know how computers work. So one of the things that we're doing right now is we're closing the IT building. So talk about, eating your own dog food. We're in the middle we moved the IT department to City Hall so we could shutter a building, and that's going to save approximately $12,000 next year, plus whatever proceeds we get from the sale of the building. Other possible cuts that we could do, we did an enterprise asset management project. That project came in way under budget, and so we gave $40,000 back to the general fund, and we put in $25,000 in the 26 budget. And we can cut that, but the impact of that will be training and the loss of staff productivity because people don't know what they're doing. As we add more staff, we train them, and that's what those dollars are for. The next thing we could do, and I'll probably look at this immediately, is canceling our hardware service for our financial system. We haven't used that in a while. It's expensive. The thing about it is you need it when you need it, but if you don't have it, then it's really expensive to get them to help you. We're still probably going to look at that again, and the $1,000, $700 things are on this list. A couple other options that we could do would be like to consolidate the zoo and the animal shelter websites back into our main website and not pay an additional cost for those. It's $5,600, but I looked at everything. We're not buying pencils at this point. So, we could cancel some of our consultants for GIS projects. Basically, what's going to happen is GIS projects are going to go take longer, or when we need assistance for fire accreditation or something, then we'll have to buy that outside of our less expensive, consultant agreements. And then we can also, work with some of our other kinds of software, try to find efficiencies there. One of the things that I walked into Angela's office this morning and I said, is Enrico looking for cuts, or is he looking for more kick it down, the can down the road? And she said, no, he's looking for stuff to go away. And so, that was those first few pages, which, there's not a ton of money in IT. We're a small department. But one thing that you need to keep in mind about IT is we're a support organization. All we do is make everybody else work better. That's what we've been put on earth for, is to improve productivity for everybody, that all the city staff here. So anytime we do something, we're not affecting just us, we're affecting all the other people that are associated with it. So we could say, for example, defer buying new computers that we replace on a normal basis, but that again is kicking the can down the road. We still are going to have to replace that. Another deferral is what Stacy brought up is the software. So we put $200,000 or $250,000 in the 26 budget because we were planning on moving to the cloud, and the company that we are working with came back with monstrous, stupid numbers, and we told them to go back to the drawing board. But the trick with that software is it's not just us. The city or public safety pays 60% of that, but it's also the county, it's also small cities, it's also EMS, it's also the sheriff and the jail. So we have to, basically we're the majority, but we don't win in a fight because of all these other groups. So one of the things that we could do is just not do that project. So instead of it being deferral, instead of moving it to 28, which is where it lives right now, and again, we preemptively did that, but we're still going to have to put money in the budget because they're saying the city's part of it's going to be $600,000, and I can't obviously come up with that all in 1 year. That's 2 mills or whatever. So we need to make sure that we're squirreling a little way when we do get to that cloud move, when they do force us into it, when we are required to do it. So basically, we'll just keep it on premise for now, and then move it as late as we can possibly do it. So this is basically that list, kind of all in a summary, and my final notes is, all these numbers are kind of back of the napkin math. I would need to, if you had any particular thing that you wanted to cut, I would need to nail it down. Secondly, some of these really are feasible to do. There's the things I can cut, I already cut. We're really lean, and I don't see any savings in salary. IT is busy all the time, and if a person's not here, that means somebody's sitting on their hands. instead of us taking care of them. So we have the potential to affect the organization probably as much or more from a cost standpoint than any other department does. If something goes wrong with IT, everybody's broke. We're it. You know, we run the world. So if you're wondering who's king, it would be no. But the fact is that you know, I'm really proud of this organization. That if you ask me, you know, where can I find money? It's like, there isn't any. You know, we've been doing this for a long, long time. We're super lean. We have exactly the amount of people that we need. We have exactly the hardware that we need. And when you defer, you suffer.
What I didn't see on there was move to daytime meetings, because you guys have about a $15,000. Is it on one of those in the?
Right here, we budgeted $10,000 for that. We reduced that. We got that down to $3,600 in night meeting expenses. I didn't know you wanted me to bring that up. But
No,
I
that's
did.
okay. Yeah.
Since we're bringing up stuff you don't want to bring up,
See Click Fix.
this was what I.
You wouldn't have a job anymore.
This is.
I wouldn't have a hobby either.
But think about what C-Click does. $18,000 worth of time saving for all these people who would have to answer the phone calls, or they would have to deal with people, you know, where people just want to take a picture of it on your phone and be done with it. You know, you don't really want to bug Cecil about potholes, because Cecil's an expensive guy. So let a computer do that. But there's
And that's an
expense.
annual subscription.
Yeah.
$18K.
I mean, if we're cutting services, it's got to be on the list. Because I mean, I can't cut email because Greg likes that, and you know, Facebook is free, and so we could cut that. I'd be happy to.
Well, and some of these cuts are like not even logical, right? Like the canceling PEC consultant budget for GIS services, and then moving to pay as you go.
He didn't ask me to be logical.
No, I know. But so when we're on a pay as you go model, I'm just pointing this out for anybody who's watching from home. When you're on a pay as you go model, you don't have a bank of hours to tap into. You're paying per hour, and we already know from engineering and other contracts that it makes more sense to have that contract in place or to have those people in-house. So if we don't have those people in-house, then we need the contract.
Well, and those people are expensive.
Right.
$250 an hour kind of a situation.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a cut, but it's going to end up costing, just like so many of the other proposals, it's going to end up costing us a lot in the long run. The $18,000 for C-Click Fix. I can't even imagine what productivity would be lost if we, I don't know.
Well, I can imagine it because we didn't have it 5 years ago.
So back to the Stone Age.
You know, get Mary Rogers in here and tell her Linda Ojeda would be happy to come in and tell you how many thousands of phone calls it did away with for her. I mean, it's all the trade-off, just like everybody has already said. Do you have any more questions for me? You guys are all looking sleepy. I need to make a joke or something, right? Okay. Let me go the right direction because I don't know how computers work. There we go.
And I would offer, too, that I recognize that some of this is illogical, but it's also illogical to try to find things to cut that when there's nothing to cut.
Right.
And so that's the entire exercise we're in. So I do appreciate Todd mentioning that, but it's the same thing throughout this whole discussion.
And I think that that's important to touch on around this whole conversation, is that the narrative is that we should just do more with less, and we've been doing that for years, and then the complaint is, I don't want to pay a sales tax or have a sales tax in town, but why didn't you mow the ditches, 18 times this year when last year you mowed them 24? It's like both things can be true. Taxes are inconvenient, and nobody wants that, but we have to have this to pay for our services. And we've been cutting, and we've been doing more with less, and we've been revenue neutral for 3 years, and it's gotten us where it got us in the whole 5 million.
I would point out on the nighttime meetings, there's a whole bunch of department heads here. It's 8 o'clock at night. They're going to take maybe comp time, but I bet not.
It's not in their contract.
This is very expensive from my point of view. Anyway, another editorial comment by Councilman Fast. I know how you feel sitting out there. And it wasn't placating to how you all feel. I'm just saying $3,600 isn't a drop in the bucket on what this is really costing. But
so I can make this quick. Jessica Woodyard, Public Communications Manager. And Department of One, very small, very lean budget as it is. But what I can offer is in miscellaneous contractuals, a reduction of $15,000. So what I use this for is for graphics assistance, media production in videos. We've said we want to tell our story, get department heads and projects that we're working on out there, and have high transparency with the community, so this has allowed us to do that. Any questions or anything? Okay.
Thanks.
I have a question for you. Is that something that you would be prepared to cut even if the sales tax does not pass, or does pass?
You would see a reduction in videos and graphics. So the comment that you made about gaining momentum, I feel like we are just gaining momentum, and I wish I could be doing more videos, more storytelling. Could it be done? It could.
Okay.
So.
And I guess a question for Todd too, looking at your bullet points. The one that stood out to me that, I don't know, seems like a no-brainer was changing over the zoo and animal shelter website back to our domain.
So basically what that is they're called subsites, and that means they get their own look and feel. So the zoo gets its own logo, and it gets its own color scheme, and the ability for it to promote itself as an entity that is part of the city, but is kind of separate. So if you go to hutchinsonzoo.com, then you go to that, and it's got the buffalo on the top, and that basically that would go away. It's the
so
same thing for the animal shelter.
Are those hosted through, is it Core Civic?
Civic Plus.
Civic Plus, okay.
Yeah. And
but they're still hosted through Civic Plus. They're
yes.
Just, okay.
They're part of our main site. It's
Yep.
managed the same way. It's just it gets its own look and feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it now. Thank you.
I believe that's all.
And I would offer that I think collectively, if you were to combine HR, law, and myself, there's really nothing to give there. Some of my expenses are for like training to conferences, like if for Advocacy Day in DC, where we meet with our federal reps, or if we want to go to the state capitol. I do have a very small amount of money for that. Food for council meetings, I mean, that's about it. And it's very marginal amount of food or money for that. I mean, he basically runs on E. It's essentially just salaries, including the benefits. And the same thing with Renee. So I suppose there's maybe a software or something that that could be scaled back, but it's not anything that would move the needle. You know, and I think part of this, and I've been asked a few times in the actually several times, and even some from you all council, on the idea of having an assistant city manager. Why I don't is because I'm very budget conscious. And that is a lot of administrative overhead. I do recognize that. And we're not really in a position, at least I feel currently, where that would make a whole lot of sense if I were to tell several department heads, hey, cut your positions, but by the way, I'm going to add one. That doesn't really seem right or fair to me. I don't have an administrative assistant. Mary helps me out a lot with my schedule. So when people come in, hey, I want to talk to the city manager, she usually gets them added somewhere in my schedule. But other than that, I don't really have much to offer. Very similar to Renee and Paul. But Paul or Renee, if you have anything to add.
I don't know, just in case you have questions, but I didn't have a fancy slide, sorry. But like Enrico said, I think in preparation of 26, I made some software changes and saved about $20,000 in software for this year, and that will continue going on. I don't have discretionary funds except for, like, Enrico mentioned, travel, membership, things like those. I cut those out. Travel came out of my pocket. Memberships, I cut some of those, like $1,000. Travel was cut $6,000. I don't know why there was so much of that in there beforehand. But most of it, health insurance, workers' comp, those kind of things, you just can't control those as much as you can some of these others. So, unless you have some ideas or suggestions or something somewhere.
Actually,
I have a question. Would there be any, so let me back up. Do we offer full benefits to our part-time employees?
Health insurance, no. 30 hours and up. We abide by ACA, and 30 hours and up do get it.
So would one potential strategy be to shift more to part-time employees instead of full-time so that we could potentially save on health insurance and benefits costs?
Well, initially you might think that, but then what happens is if you have 50 part-time employees, let's say, or 20, now you've got 20 families of 6 people each or 4 people each, and you have more claims. So you just got more people paying premiums, but then you'll have that many more claims.
But if they weren't eligible for benefits at all? Having more part-time employees who wouldn't be eligible for benefits.
Oh, I'm sorry. So reducing full-time, personnel to part-time. Possibly. I just know, and probably department heads know too, it's really hard to find good, qualified part-time personnel in many positions. A lot of them, some of our seasonals, we even have a hard time finding seasonal people anyway and part-time people. So positions that require more experience, higher education levels, things like that, it's really hard. People want full-time with benefits. So, you might find maybe a handful, but I don't know that it would make enough of a difference.
Yeah, and we do have a few case studies on that, like at the animal shelter. We used to have 2 part-time positions that were almost impossible to either fill or keep full. And so that was putting a lot of strain on the full-time staff to kind of meet the hours obligations. And so since we took the 2 part-times, made it a full-time, and that was very effective at reducing a lot of the overtime and just morale booster anyway. But throughout several of those departments, that was the first one that came to mind. But yeah, it is very challenging to find good part-time help.
And do we already have a policy in I've read the handbook, but I don't recall that if you're eligible for benefits through a spouse, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Some employers, they'll give a stipend for another, like if you have insured with your spouse's insurance.
Yes.
Rather than, we don't have anything like that.
Is that something that would be perhaps a potential cost savings on our health insurance side?
Possibly. I could work with USI on that and kind of see what that would look like. I have had some employees ask, about that because they do have coverage with their spouse. So But that is something. We had, and I have it on, I think, on the information for tomorrow, but we were really fortunate this year for 26 health insurance. Our premiums actually, the cities actually went down slightly. So we were able to not have any increases for employees or for the city. So able to put a little bit more money in the bank. But that was pretty much unheard of.
That's a fluke. Like, that doesn't happen.
No. See, the employees have done really good. We've implemented a lot of things that manage chronic health, claims, things like that. So the employees have been really good with that on whatever that they can do. And we've also working with companies to source prescriptions, better priced prescriptions, things like that, which is a huge cost for the plan. So that worked out. Probably won't happen again next year, but we took it this year while we could get it, so. Anything else?
I probably would call Chief Burley up for him to go as well.
Did he know that?
Yeah.
Bryce Burley, Police Chief. I did not have any slides, but I think you're going to hear me reiterate basically what's been said up here all night long. I mean, I do want to provide some context to what I'm about to say, so if you just bear with me for a few minutes. I know everybody's tired and probably ready to go home, but as that's been mentioned in here earlier, the staffing levels in the city's probably at a historic high. At least it is for the police department. We're at full staff for the first time. I say 20 years that we've been in this position, especially with having 77 officers on the department. We've never reached that level ever before. Those officers, too, the majority of them are now out on the street actually producing on their own. That means they're not in training. They're not counting for us as far as our staffing levels go. I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhere around 72 of our officers are actually working in the capacity of a police officer. The personnel obviously equates to a huge portion of what our budget is at the department. Our operating budget that we've only moved it up over the last 4 years about 9% over the total of 4 years. And most of that goes to just keeping the lights on, gas, electricity, fuel for the cars, things of that nature. The only thing that we've moved up significantly in our operating budget is our training budget. We've made a heavy investment into training our officers to make sure that they can act appropriately and make life and death split-second decisions and make them correctly. As you guys know, law enforcement is a very volatile, politically driven sometimes agency inside your government. I would lean to say that it's probably the one that has the highest liability attached to it too. We're the only ones that are actually authorized, given the power by government to use deadly force to potentially take a life, and then probably the second worst thing you can do to somebody in the United States is take away their civil liberties, and that's place them under arrest and put them in jail. Given that type of power and having to make split-second decisions is why we invest so highly in training, to make sure that they fall back on their training and use it appropriately. That's about the only thing that we've really moved up in that operating budget at all. I'll go into MRF. Probably the only thing that we have in MRF that's available to cut back on is our fleet of vehicles, our patrol fleet. That does cost a substantial amount of money. However, just like that was mentioned earlier, we do work heavily with, sorry, I just forgot his name, down at Public Works. Jesse, thank you. And Jesse helps us make the determination of when the cost to keep continually repairing those vehicles outweigh the cost of selling those vehicles on Purple Wave, getting as much money as we can at that time, reinvesting that money back into a new set of patrol vehicles. So that's data driven as well. That's not just something that we make up and just say, hey, we want a new fleet of vehicles. We push those vehicles to the very end. of their life expectancy, and then we rely on Jesse and the experts to tell us, hey, it's now time to move on and get as much as we can out of them, reinvest that back into the MRF, use that money then to purchase new vehicles. We've reduced the MRF by over 40% the last 3 years. We've cut everything that we can cut unless you want to start getting into jeopardizing the safety of officers or the potential liability, accountability, and transparency that goes along with it. And by that I mean body-worn cameras, car cameras, less lethal options such as tasers, bulletproof vests. That's where we're at now. We're at that bare bones. That's where we're going to have to start making cuts if we are going to make cuts. I will add that we try to find the grants when we can. Vests, we get 50% back from the federal government, close to 50%. Just 2 or 3 years ago, we applied for a grant and got close to $600,000 to buy all of our radios. That was actually budgeted in the MRF. So that money that we got for that grant actually went back into the general fund. So we do try to be good stewards with our money, and we do try to find other avenues of paying for things on the department whenever we have the opportunity to do so. I just wanted to give you just a brief example. I thought this was fascinating of what the officers did on the street this week to help you guys understand the importance of becoming full-staffed and what a full-staffed agency can do. But just over this weekend, they had 19 arrests. They recovered 484.3 grams of meth. They recovered 39 grams of marijuana and 4 grams of fentanyl, which is, as we know, is what's causing all the majority of the overdoses. They also recovered a substantial amount of cash, captured a serial burglar that was going around town stealing items from people. And then they were also able to follow up on a flee and elude suspect that eluded them the night before because they had the manpower to go towards that. And by doing that, they were actually able to catch the individual that fled from police and ditched a large amount of dope. That was due to manpower. That was just in one weekend of what those officers did when they have that full staff out there. The crime rate right now is down from 30.06 to 26.52. That's a reduction of 13% in crime. And the reason I mention that is because we talked about the personnel, and that's the only piece that you could probably look at making cuts to my agency that's going to even move the needle as far as what the city needs for budgeting purposes. But by having that full staff, we were able to reduce that crime rate by 13% from 30.06 to 26.52. There was one point many years ago, and I'm sure some of you guys that have been around for a while, we used to be labeled as probably one of the highest crime cities in Kansas, and if not the United States. We mentioned ISO rating, something that does not always translate or get out there, at least people understand it. Your homeowner's insurance is a reflection of what the crime rate is in the city. So the farther that we drive this crime rate down, and we continually drive it down, it actually helps reduce that insurance premium that all of you pay on a day-to-day basis. I think we've only scratched the surface on what the department's capable of doing with the amount of officers that we have, and I'm really excited about what the future has. And I hope that this getting to full staff is not something that's ephemeral and something that will continue on for many years, and we can really continue to help this city become the best it can. I will add that we've gone through this a lot, being low staff, cutting staff. We don't have the luxury of cutting staff and then not filling the positions. If we cut staff, you still have to have police officers on the street. You have to still have police officers that respond to emergencies. You have to have them that go to court. They take individuals back and forth to court. We still have to have that. So really the cost that can be offset by potentially reducing staff comes back to hit you in the forms of overtime, burnout, cost of retraining additional officers. I did a study years ago, and I can get it to you, on what actually the benefit is to the city financially if you just invest in your officers versus the cost of continually rotating them in and out. So I think we have, and I hope I explained what we have done with that budget as much as possible. And as Chief Beer eloquently stated earlier, I guess it's the level of service that we're willing to accept here in Hutchinson will help dictate what we're going to be willing to accept when it comes to budget cut time. So I said a lot in a short amount of time, but I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time here. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
How many guys you running on a crew?
We're running right now 7 officers, 1 traffic, on average, 7 officers, 1 traffic, 1 K-9, and 2 supervisors.
Yeah, a few years ago, I had me and maybe another supervisor and 4 officers.
Yeah.
1 major call and you were done for the day.
And the unfortunate part about that is that's that level of service. You know, now the officers are tied up. For example, the big fire that we had up north, we had enough officers that could handle the call load in the city of Hutch and move them up to create a barrier from moving north of 43rd and keeping that traffic away from the fire department so they could, continue to do their job at a high level. And if we don't have those amount of officers, we wouldn't have been able to go up there. And then the fire department then starts to have to use their resources to block off streets and not really do what their job is designed to do. And then you have a failure at that level, and then that just keeps rolling into a magnitude of failures. So the success of that was due to Cecil Street Department, fire department, dispatch, law enforcement. And we were able to do that because of the investment that we've all made into all these different entities. And I know the ask is a lot, and I know the position that we're in, and it's going to be probably some tough conversations that come up in the future. But I would like to say that I've been here for 27 years. I've been doing this job for 27 years, and I felt like for the first time in a long time, this city is moving in the right direction. And sometimes the hardest time is at the beginning and continuing on pushing forward and making those efforts and making those sacrifices. And then once those get done, then we're going to really reap the benefits of what's coming to us in the future. And I truly feel that. And I speak like that because I've seen both sides of this coin. So I just wanted to mention that. Again, I said I was going to make it short. Sometimes I get going when I get passionate about something. So. But that's all I have.
And then Alec, thank you, to kind of round us off.
I'll try to make it short. So for the airport, or Alex staying airport, for the airport, we don't have personnel to cut. We're still down a position right now, as is. Basically, we have kind of been on a Band-Aid shoestring budget as far as operations for probably several years now, from what I've gathered. I'm rounding 2 years out there, and our municipal equipment is we're sitting at 80% past due for turnover. This past year, we did about $29,000 in repairs, the majority of that being our tractors for mowing operations. And we had plenty of complaints this summer about our mowing operations. And that had largely to do with weather and the fact that our tractors were down for a good chunk of the summer. As far as any other cuts, it would have to come from our CIP. And basically, we could just ball up this 5-year modernization plan and chuck it into the waistband if we're looking at truly trying to cut the airport budget. A lot of our funding actually comes from the FAA, and we can still maintain that, but we would just be meeting the bare minimums at that point. A good example is years ago, somebody chose to do the bare minimum with runway 1331 and go from concrete to asphalt. Well, that's reduced our capacity. And now we're not able to service aircraft at a higher capacity that we would otherwise. We're losing traffic to Wichita because of that choice several years ago to go from concrete to asphalt. And we're looking to make that change over here in the next few years. And that's a $20 million budget with a 10% match from the city. So it's a considerable ask, but the potential at the airport, it's outstanding. We've got 45 acres along the main taxiway, which is prime real estate for any airport to have. And we truly need to invest in the airport now instead of just continuing to kick the can down the road. If we want to actually move forward and have a better economic impact from the airport. One of the other factors too with the airport is it's an entrance to the city, not only from the air side, but also at 4th and Airport coming into Hutchinson. So there's a lot we need to be doing to also update the facilities and the grounds of the airport. The airport turns 97 this year. The building I work out of is 76 years old now, and it's the 3rd oldest building. So there's 2 other buildings that are older, and they're taking much more money to repair, especially if we're just Band-Aiding and not actually doing full structural or electrical repairs at this point. So it's kind of where the airport stands. We can continue with status quo, be stagnant for the next 40 years again, or we can actually make an investment and try to do something great out there. Any questions?
And I would like to add what Alec just said about making an investment to not do what we've always done for 40 years. I mean, that's like everything we're doing. And I think we've heard from many people in the community about the improved services that we've done, the tremendous potential in all of our assets, including the airport. And I think to get the best bang for our buck from this meeting, I mean, council, what are your thoughts, direction, guidance, questions, et cetera, now that you've kind of heard everything?
Well, you know what? I've been in the city, worked in the city 20, 30 years, and this is the worst I've ever seen it. The citizens have to understand, if we cut all these jobs, we need every single job in the city, from that tractor street department, from everything that we use in the city, we need it. At one time or another, we're going to need that vehicle, or that tractor, or that backhoe. They have to understand that we do these cuts and what's coming up, we're going to take the city back 20 years. How long has we had dispatch? I've been here. I've seen dispatch down in low. It's because our city's great. And for us to move on, we are making forward moves in our city. If we're going to do what we're going to do, we're going to go backwards. We've been going forwards all this time. We're going backwards. And the citizens have to understand it takes money to run the city. And as far as the city council meetings, I was one of the ones that won the city council meeting because I have a full-time job. And I had to make arrangements with the prison to work. I had to get up early in the morning to go to work so I could make these meetings. You're not going to be able to find any working person to be on the city council because they can't do it. They can't work and go to city council meetings at the same time. I still have problems now, even though I got night meetings, but I'd rather have the night meeting because I can still go to work, get there on time. I used all my vacation for city council business. All my vacations used to go to meetings and whatever. And I don't mind it. That's why I'm here for. I wanted to be a representative of the city. But the citizens don't realize we cannot take steps back. If we do these cuts like they're saying, we're going to go backwards. We're going to go back to where we were. Now we have less equipment if we go backwards to maintain the streets. We have less equipment in the water department. And people don't understand that at least 5 people know what shape the city's in. We have a wastewater treatment plant that's falling apart. We have a water department that's water treatment plant that needs looked at. So the money that we're asking, this percentage we're having, we wouldn't ask it if we didn't need it. This city needs it to move forward. There's a lot of great things coming. I mean, you guys get me talking and here I go, but I'm thinking this stuff all the time. When I tell you guys in the city, citizens in the city, I truly mean what I say. I've been in this city a long time. And you're going to be getting rid of me in 2 years. In 28, I'm done, so you don't have to hear this soap opera thing. But I'm telling you from my heart, if we go backwards, I don't know if this city's going to make it back again. We're to the point where we're fully staffed. We're starting to repair our streets. And it takes money. It takes money to do that. Don't take us back to where we were back in the 70s, back in the 60s. We had kids I want kids to live here. My grandkids, I want them to stay here. I don't want them to go find other jobs other places. Without that young people, we're nothing. We're nothing. But in order for them to stay here, we have to put money in the city. We have to put money in the city to give them something. So all I am saying, number one, I don't think we should. I like night meetings. I know the rest, some of the council don't. I do, because I can go to work and make a living and still come and do what I always wanted to be, to represent this city. But let's don't go back. Let's don't go backwards. Because I don't care if we want to talk budget cuts, cut this, cut that. The way I look at it, every fire engine we got in the fire, we need it. Every bucket truck we get out on the streets, we need it. Every big machine that sucks that dirt out of there, the vacuum truck, we need it. These guys don't order these trucks because they want to order. We have 3 Vector trucks. They don't order 3 because they're taking advantage, because they need it to run the city, to keep it going. And City of Hutch is getting a good name. They're getting a great name. We know it because we hear it. We have a city manager of the year. Now, how many times have we had that? Huh? We haven't had that. So citizens of this town, you got to realize it takes money to run this city, and we're moving this city. If we cut our budget, cut any position at all, we're going backwards. There's many people as we got and many people as we're doing. People, you have to understand, it takes those people in that fire truck and that backhoe and all that stuff to run this city. If we cut it, we're going backwards. And I don't know the next time, we don't know if we're going to recover. I remember when I wanted to be a city council member, I went down the street. I looked down the street and I see the tumbleweed coming down the middle of the street. You know what my first thought was? That's City of Hutch in a couple of years. All the businesses are going to leave because nobody likes us because we never did anything to the city. Well, we're doing things to the city. And we're going to see that tumbleweed coming down the middle of the street because there's nobody here. Because everybody's leaving. But now we're making movements and improvements of the city. And we got people that care. These people that are here, our department heads, even the people in the city commission, we care. We care. So I hope the citizens listen to me, and sometimes I don't listen. I know I talk from my head, I talk from my heart. We have to get this sales tax going to keep this city going. We cannot afford one position to be cut. We cannot cut our police. We cannot cut our fire. Every single one makes this city what it is today. This city is great, so let's keep it great. So we can't afford to keep citizens. We cannot afford. We got to have this 3/4 inch sales tax to keep this city alive. Don't ask these 5 people to cut positions. It rides on our shoulders. We're the ones that got to make that big decision, man. Come on, man. Let's get Hutch going. So, I mean, I think about it all the time when I'm listening. That's why I'm so quiet. I'm thinking of all this stuff in my mind. I'm thinking we cannot afford not to have the sales tax. And I don't care what you say, this city has gone it's gone a long ways. It's gone a long ways. And if you cut the city, we're gonna all our programs that we built is gonna go backwards. It's gonna go backwards. You can't hear complaints now, you ain't heard nothing yet. That one hole that we used to take now with this click thing, we get it in a couple of days. It might be a couple months before you get to it now if we cut it back. So, I mean, to me, we have to get out to the public and tell them we need to have this 3/4 cent sales tax to stay alive, to keep going. If we don't, you're making us 5 people make they are bad decisions to cut people's jobs. Every single job we have here is important. From the water clerk to the fire people to the police, Even our jobs as city commissioners, we don't get no money, and the money part don't bother me, is that you have to serve the community. We have to serve the community. And we cut these jobs, it's gonna go back. And we have failed as a city commission. We had to make those decisions. Don't make us make those decisions. You wanna keep Hutch here? We have to keep that 3/4% tax. There's nothing to it. That's just the bottom line. We cut these jobs, we cut these taxes, and we cut it, we're gonna go backwards. I'm shut up now. You asked for me to say something.
No, I appreciate that. I really do. And, Councilmember Garza, that, I would offer that, like, I'd be lying if I thought that, like, making cuts, like, I would get the same feeling like we're going backwards. I'd be lying if I said any other feeling than that. And I think the other thing too, sorry, it's just a hard conversation. I do believe in the potential of Hutch and everything that we're trying to accomplish here. And I hope that for anyone listening, for those that want to be educated on the matter, that they would see the value as well.
Well, that's all we can do is just speak up and try to get our point across to the citizens of this city. I've been here a long time, a long time. So I've seen when the city was terrible. I hate to say it, we were terrible. And now we're coming to the place where we're seeing that we didn't maintain stuff. Look at our water plant and our wastewater treatment plant. When we went down there, it is a mess.
Yeah, I was embarrassed. To be honest with you, I was embarrassed.
But the citizens
I've all threw up.
Right.
Twice.
Well, when we were showing a potential large employer the area, they're like, oh, how about we went to the water treatment facility? And they're like, oh, let's go to the wastewater. I'm like, no. I'm actually really embarrassed to go out there.
But the thing about it, this is a discussion. The thing about it is, everybody's on to us about jobs. There's jobs on the table. We haven't got them all filled. We have met every expectation that the citizens wanted us to do. They want us to look at jobs. We're after jobs, right?
Yep.
They want us to fix the streets. We'll fix the streets. They want us to fill the holes in the streets. We have that computer thing that IT put in there, people call in. We have met every expectation that the citizens wanted us to meet. Now, they could help us. When I say help us pass this tax to keep Hutchinson going.
And, just for everyone's recall, I mean, we're only asking for what keeps the lights on.
Right.
There's no more fluff money or anything like that. It's just what you see today is what we would keep going.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel for it. I mean, I think about it all the time. I mean, we have to keep the city going. And if we don't, we cut one position, we're going backwards. We're going backwards. We need every city employee we have. Every single one, we need them. And they're happy. They're happy employees. I remember when I worked here, we were not happy, but they're happy today. So I don't know what it is. It just takes everybody out there telling everybody we have to keep the city going. And then you're gonna put that if we don't pass that thing, you're putting the responsibility on these 5 people to cut jobs. We know right now what we're gonna have to do if the sales tax don't go. We're gonna have to cut services. We're gonna have to cut. Yeah, I mean, I better be quiet. That's that.
I mean, admittedly, that's why we're starting several months early, so we have time to really beat it up in the event that the sales tax doesn't pass.
And yeah, we'd be the ones who sit up here and say that the budget cut is required, but it's you and it's Renee and it's chiefs and it's the directors who are going to sit across the table and let someone go.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, like, we're making the decision, but we're still insulated from the true consequence, if you will. We're not going to sit there and be the ones sitting across the table as we let someone go or close the fire station. So all of this, if you've ever read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, it really makes me think of that, and I'm gonna reorder or reread it. But essentially a society that demands mediocrity, and I think that is really what this kind of comes back to for me, is that as we are having the conversation about funding, we can't have that conversation without having the conversation about production and quality of work, and we're essentially being held to a standard of required mediocrity by residents. And you know, when we voted a few weeks back about putting this on the ballot in March, I sat that night and I read the comments on Facebook, and for the people, because I have nothing better to do apparently, you know, the people whose names I could find in the tax rolls, I looked them up, and it became really clear to me that some of the people who were so vocal against this don't even live in Hutch, and they're reaping the benefits of our streets and our fire and our police response, our first responders, and they're saying, well, if you guys pass this, we'll just go shop in Wichita. Well, that's exactly Atlas Shrugged. The people just move or disappear. So, you know, and another person who is very vocal against this, because I reached out to her and I asked if she'd watched the meeting. Hadn't watched the meeting. Had already created custom graphics opposed to the sales tax measure. Had not watched the meeting. Has never in my time of being on council has attended a meeting. I don't know if she watches from home regularly. Hadn't watched that meeting where we talked about it and voted on it. So people are already making an uninformed decision, and the consequences of this tax measure failing, it truly is cuts in every single department. We're not going to save fire. We're not going to save police, even though they're typically insulated in these because of the public safety aspect, and they're always the darlings both of every city. But you know, it's the conflicting values of making things fair across departments, that sort of thing. And the reality is that the financial strain touches all departments, and I wouldn't feel comfortable insulating one over another. Our bond rating would be negatively impacted, which in turn would increase the costs of how much we pay to finance our debt. Homeowners insurance costs would rise in a reality where the average rate increase in Kansas year before last was 19%. Needed projects would be deferred only to cost more down the road. Delayed purchases would result in higher long-term expenses, increasing maintenance costs in the meantime. So there's really no realistic scenario where we aren't taking a hit in multiple areas. And this isn't due to mismanagement by this council. This isn't due to mismanagement by Mr. Villegas or any of our current directors. I think this stems to the expectation that we do more with less, and we did that for so long, and we stretched ourselves very thin. We were revenue neutral or mill neutral for 4 years. We went down 5 mills in 5 years. At the same time, inflation is 25% on some goods. So we've done all we can. We've made significant cuts. I just hope that residents see this for what it truly is. The sales tax spreads this across everybody who visits Hutch and purchases anything in Hutch. And you know, for all the pages of research that I had of why I was planning to vote against it initially, I do understand that it's the right decision, and I hope that everybody sees that.
Yeah, and I would add too, again, for the informal part of this conversation, you know, future council could look at, say if the sales tax doesn't pass, we need to make significant cuts and morale goes down. A future council could go, it's the city manager that did this. Everyone wants a scapegoat. This job is how I provide for my family. So naturally, there's a lot of stress that rides on this here, even for what this could mean for a future me, or future department heads if somebody else is cast with the blame. So anyway, there's a lot of stress just naturally about this whole thing, but because everyone always wants someone to blame, and it's just a byproduct of people always saying we want cuts. What is there to cut? And I'm going to keep repeating that. We've just learned it's people, and we wanted to ramp up codes enforcement because it's the right thing to do. We added one person. And, we wanted to get ahead in crime and do a lot more intelligent-led policing. We're fully staffed. When you call 911, you want someone to answer the phone. We're doing the basic services that we set ourselves out to do.
And those are all paying dividends.
Correct. And, it really would be a going backwards in the most bizarre way. Because you want to live here, but then you don't want to contribute to keeping the success going. That baffles me.
Mr. Rico, I'm gonna tell you something. If you were doing a bad job, we would fire you, because we have fired city managers before.
Oh, believe me, I'm aware.
Okay. So if you would be doing a bad job, you would know it right off the bat, okay? So you need to get that off your mind, all right? Because you wouldn't be here if we think you weren't doing a good job.
Oh, no, I'm just saying a future one.
I understand that, but
because everyone wants a fall guy.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of being a city manager, is you're going to get blamed for something you didn't do.
And honestly, looking at some of the bills that are in the legislature right now. So I sent you an email about one, House Bill 2451, that the League of Kansas Municipalities is opposed to. Essentially, it makes it a crime for a Class C misdemeanor, which is 30 days in jail or a $500 fine for any state employee or municipality employee to distribute information about a ballot measure, which would be our sales tax vote. So if Jessica, who went back to her office, put out a Facebook post saying, here's what's on the ballot, here's X, Y, and Z information, the language of the bill is so that any mass communications, which presumably would be a Facebook post or an email blast, what have you, would be a violation, and she could go to jail or pay $500 fine and have a criminal record. The state legislature is eroding our home rule every single year and overstepping, trying to move city elections. They're trying to force us to be partisan, essentially, and I completely disagree with the whole premise of that. But that's the path that we're heading down, and that's I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I think that the makeup of city councils is going to be drastically changed in a couple years, and that's their intention. They won our elections on August and November. I'm sorry. Yeah. To match all of their primaries and to take away special elections.
Maybe if we got meaningful property tax relief from the state, we wouldn't have this conversation.
This is a tough conversation to have, but I value what your staff did, putting together all these reports and what they'd have to cut, so that I hope that the public seeing this, hearing all of this, will go, oh, we don't want to cut this stuff. This is stuff that our city needs to grow, continue, services we need. And so I'm hoping with everything you guys presented tonight, it just helps the public have awareness of how important this is to pass this sales tax. So that's, I mean, that's just kind of my take on it.
You know, absolutely. And I think too, throughout a lot of these discussions and, you know, as we kind of fine tune and sharpen the pencil on what services we want to offer or how can we improve our services, you know, I've said this before, I'll say it again, that we've cut our building permit fees. We're proposing to eliminate the stormwater utility fee. We've waived residential tap fees for water and sewer. I mean, find another community that's willing to cut that and still improve services. I mean, I'll wait. The list is pretty small. I mean, we do listen to the concerns of what the community is saying. You know, and I know when I got here, people hated the stormwater utility fee.
Still do.
Yeah,
Still do. Still do. Okay, we took that concern and we baked this into a proposal. We heard you.
And if you do the math, the first $6,000 you spend will be equal to the stormwater utility fee, the normal stormwater utility fee on a water bill. Not for Scott and I, who own parking lots, and the state fair, who owns all kinds of impervious land. Anyway.
And that was $6,000 of taxable goods per household.
Yes.
Because the fee is per household.
Yeah, and I mean, don't check my math, but it's $80 a year and 3/4 of 1 cent. I mean, you can come up with a number, and it's a significant number to, you know, anyway, I don't have anything to add. I mean, I would just be repeating what I've heard, and so.
I mean, this conversation reminds me of what Councilmember Richardson had said probably a year ago or so, that whether you raise the mill 2 mil or you brought it down, you're still charging more than they want. So you may as well just do it, you know, is right. I mean, it's close to that, and that really echoes through this entire conversation. So, I mean, he imparted a lot of, you know, wisdom on me, but that was a big takeaway.
And there's a reason why we are, by statute, by state statute, not allowed to just put this on as a sales tax. We can't just create a new sales tax. That's not within our power as a council. The thing that wasn't touched on tonight was, but it was in the previous meeting, was that the alternative to the sales tax is that we go up 10 mils.
About 10 mil.
Which means that every property owner in town, not the people coming in from South Hutch to go to Walmart and what have you, that's my reminder to go to bed, are now the only ones shouldering the burden of this. And the sales tax is the alternative path that means we're all paying in. Every visitor coming into town, every person coming to Stratica and Cosmosphere and everything. I would much rather have the sales tax than go up 10 mils. And I think if you asked anybody else who really took a minute to understand it, I think they would all say the same thing. That or we just cut everything. And then it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. The county voted earlier during their special meeting this evening to not pursue their sales tax in, what date were they looking at? August?
I think it was August.
August. So.
Darren, you have anything to add?
I don't think so.
I move to adjourn.
I'll adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff.
Thank you, staff.
Everybody.
Just hoping we can celebrate on March 4th.